to have the joy of recognizing our graduates, our high school graduates and a college graduate, and one seminary graduate who is not here. She's already getting ready to take on her first appointment, Erin Beavis, our seminary graduate. So it's a good day to recognize the accomplishments of our young folks, and then at the same time, we're also recognizing the ministry of the Scouts here in our community. We have several troops that meet here on our campus, and they are participating in our worship in various ways as well. So we're grateful for both of those ministries and for our young folks. A few things I just want to remind you of before we get started. Tomorrow we begin the construction for our second phase of the Making Room project. If you were here at the end of last week, you would have seen an absolute whirlwind of activity as we tried to empty out. Imagine trying to empty out about half of your house and put all that stuff somewhere else. Just go home and do that and let me know how that feels for you. So we emptied out the entire second floor and the foundation, moved all that stuff in preparation for the second phase of construction, which is the Children's Center. Our entire children's wing will move over to another part of the building, and we're very excited about that. And we're looking forward to about 8 or 9 weeks from now being able to open up the Mary Maud Sharp Children's Center here at St. Paul. So we're very excited. Pray that it goes well and without complications, and it will truly only be 8 or 9 weeks. And then we can get all that stuff out of the way and back where it belongs. Also, this Wednesday night, we will have the second of our discussions about the Reconciling Ministry Network. That is a repeat of what we did this past Wednesday. We had about 35 folks who came. But if that is something you'd like to be part of that conversation and learn a little bit more about Reconciling Ministry Network, that will happen this Wednesday night. And you are certainly invited and encouraged to be a part of that conversation. Also, you'll notice in the bulletin today, all the registration for our summer events are now open. So whether you have children and want to sign them up for Extreme Explorers or Vacation Bible School, I know all of the youth events for the summer are open and ready for you to sign up and make a commitment to be part of mission teams and all the youth activities that are going on this summer. So take a good look and get yourself signed up. Let's take a few moments now before we begin our worship and greet one another in the spirit of grace and joy.
By your wisdom, we are taught the way and the truth. Bless our graduates as they now cross this milestone.
We thank you for those who taught and worked beside them, and all who supported them along the way.
Walk with the graduates as they leave and move forward in life, take away their anxiety and confusion of purpose.
Strengthen their many talents and skills. Instill in them confidence in the future to come, where energies can be gathered up and used for good of all people.
For the graduates, this is truly a day of new beginnings, a time to remember, move on, and a time to believe what love is great.
May they always know that Christ is alive and goes before us, to show and share what love can do. This is the day of new beginnings. Our God is making all things new. I'd like to ask our graduates to come on up for a moment so that we can recognize you and pray for you. Come on all the way up. It's good practice. Hannah was the only one who did what she was supposed to do. We tell them, wear the shirt of the school that you're going to be attending. And Hannah, you're not going to college. Mom, Dad, did you know that? What was that? He's moving out. He's moving out. He may not be going to college, but he's moving out. And Juliana is done with school. She says until she goes to graduate school, right? Who knows? Juliana Coughlin has just graduated with a degree in youth ministry from Florida Southern and is heading up to Nashville to take on a position at one of the churches where she interned twice. Yeah. Jackson Burks is moving out of the house. But he is going to that school.
Yeah.
And will be part of the honors program at Florida State. Major? Economics. So not only is he moving out of the house, he's going to support you guys. Hannah Joyner is going to Tallahassee Community College. The girl who knows how to read instructions. Pediatrician. All right. Dr. Jackson, I told you, just deal with all that money you're going to be making. And you're going to, Morgan Holmes is going to Birmingham Southern. Yes. Birmingham Southern University College in the great state of Alabama, and majoring in biology, pre-med. So we got a smart group of kids. Michaela Dobson is graduating from Sale High School. She's in Chicago right now. Thank you for that shout out for Sale. She's in Chicago right now. And then Erin Beavis, who is one of ours as well, just graduated with her Master of Divinity from Candler School of Theology at Emory University. Will be assigned, has already been assigned a pastorate at the church in the area. So she'll be entering into the pastoral ministry. So would you join me as we pray for our graduates? Gracious God, we're grateful for the lives of these young folks and for all that they mean to this church. Would you, by your grace, fill them with courage and boldness as they take this next step into a new season of their life? God, calm any anxieties that they may feel and heighten their excitement and their joy at the accomplishments that they have completed. Give them eyes to see opportunities that lay before them. And most of all, oh God, let them know that this church continues to surround them and nurture them and root for them and cheer for them with every step that they take. Continue to go with them, before them, beside them, behind them, above them, and below them. Keep them safe and let them know they always have a home here at St. Paul's United Methodist Church. We celebrate with them and we send them on their way into the world with our congratulations and our deepest joy. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Would you give our congratulations to our He said you're supposed to put them in order. I said I did in order of how much I like you. I'm quoting from this book later. Thank you so much.
Let us join in the prayers of the people. Lord God of hosts, you are always asking, whom shall I send? Give each of us the courage of Isaiah to respond, here am I, send me. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. You are beautiful, Lord God, because you are holy, and your voice is all powerful. Give strength to your people, and give the blessings of your peace. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. Spirit of God, when we are fearful, you ask us, why? Are you not my adopted ones? Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. Lord Jesus Christ, you speak to us of heavenly things, even when we are most interested in earthly things. Speak to us in the night times of our lives, that we may learn the way and the will of your Holy Spirit. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. The problems of the nations, the politics of parties, the threats and fears of peoples everywhere, and all evil things that keep us away from love. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. The dying, the sick, the lonely, and the forsaken are your special people, for you know the names of each, even as we call upon you, once again to remember them. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, the whole earth is full of your glory. Come, Holy Spirit, come with your life-giving care and joy. And now let us pray together with confidence as the children of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the prayer which Jesus taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Rather than just getting all upset and getting rid of people, you give them a second chance. And that was perfect, and it sounded so much better the next time, didn't it? And practice, you need to be part of the bell choir. We rehearse on Sunday nights, make sure you're here. So, what is the one thing that all of you can do for the church? Help it. What else? Pray for it. What were you going to say? Love God. Do you know that every single person out here can pray for this church? And that's what I'm going to ask us to do. That every single day we pray for this church. What do you think, Izzy? You like that idea? And we could play, can't we? We could all play. That's right. How about if we pray together? And then you can tell me what you're going to say, right? Let's pray together. Gracious God, we're so grateful for every single person who's a part of this church. And we're grateful for our children who teach us such important lessons about forgiveness and trying our best. Oh God, would you help us to every day to remember to pray not only for our children, but for this entire church, so that we might be the people that you call us to be. Bless us this day and every day. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much. What were you going to tell me? Hey, church is good. That's very good. What's that? You have a question for me? Go ahead, let's hear it. Nobody knows the turtle song? How about if we teach the turtle song to us? We'll do that, okay? All right, good enough.
So the king and Haman went into feast with Queen Esther. On the second day, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Esther? It shall be granted you. Then what is your request? Even to the half of my kingdom. I shall fulfill, then I shall fulfill." Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have won your favor, O king, and if I please the king, let what my God has given me. What is my petition? And the lives of my people. That is my request. For we have been sold. I, my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we have been sold as slaves, men and women, I would have held my peace, but no enemy can compensate for this damage to the king. This king.
Everybody's going to say that now for laughter.
Yeah.
Say Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus.
They laughed and they didn't even know how to say it.
Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther, "Who is he? And where is he? Who he presumed to do this?" Esther, a foe and enemy, this wicked Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. The word of God was fulfilled for the people
attend to it, the more you see in it. In the end, the story of Esther leaves much unsaid. It raises as many questions as it answers, and because of that, it echoes real life, perhaps better than any story that we know. Because in this book, we encounter a God who is hidden in plain sight. I mentioned last week that the most notable things, or one of the most notable things about the story of Esther, is that God is hidden in this story. God is never mentioned, never found in the text. But the presence of God, the power of God, the working of God is all over this story, especially in the character of Esther and in her uncle Mordecai. So today, as we celebrate our graduates, our high school graduates, our college graduates, our seminary graduates, I want to talk about one of the characteristics of Esther in this story, and that is this characteristic of holy boldness. I want to talk about this as an encouragement to our young people, and especially maybe to all of us, to live our lives in a way that displays holy boldness. I think the very first thing I notice in this story is that Esther teaches us about holy boldness by stepping out of the expected role for the sake of others. Esther steps out of the expected role for herself for the sake of others. Now, Esther is clearly a woman who lives in a time where women were meant to keep silent. They were to be gentle and quiet, a showpiece rather than a political force. That was the culture, that was the expectation of women at this time. And Esther was bold to step out of that expected role and into the role of being a leader, a voice, an advocate for her people, a people who were about to be annihilated simply because they were Jewish. And Esther speaks out against this. And so the question I have for myself, the question I think we should all be asking ourselves out of the story is, what does the culture say you are to be? Because the culture has something to say to all of us and to each of us about who you are supposed to be. We want to think that we're more advanced. We would like to think that in our society, anybody can do everything, and we don't have expectations that we put on people because of their gender or for their age, because of their age, or because of any other label we want to use. I have an uncle who is 86 years old, and 3 days a week, he straps on a pair of ice skates and pads, and he plays goalie for one of the local hockey teams. And he has a marvelous time, but our culture would not expect an 86-year-old to do that. We get even simpler than that. Just in the last recent weeks, I had a conversation with somebody who said, there's some concern in the church because we're going to have 2 female pastors. Yeah, thank you. Whoever did that, thank you. And I said, I wonder, and I wondered out loud, I wonder if we would ever say that if we had 2 male pastors. Would anybody ever point to a church and say, how unusual, they have 2 male pastors? But instead, because we don't expect women to be in this position, some of us at least don't. And yet this church has a rich history in our own history of having female leadership and having 2 female pastors at the same time. But it's still a role that's somewhat unexpected. We have churches in our conference who have been very clear and say, we don't want a woman leading us. We don't want a person of color leading us. And that's exactly what the bishop said. That was his response as well. And yet we constantly are putting roles on people, expectations. In this case, Esther responds to those expectations by stepping away. She does it primarily because she's doing it for the sake of others. She's doing it for the sake of her people. It was incredibly brave for her to stand before the king and say, my people, I am Jewish. She reveals her Jewishness because they're about to all be killed. And I wonder, are we willing to do the same for someone with no voice? Are we willing to step out and be courageous for someone who has no voice and being mistreated? Being bold, living into holy boldness, is being willing to be authentic to who you are and live fully into who you are. And so I would say to our graduates and to all of you, who are you really? What are your strengths? What are your gifts? What are your talents? What are your limitations? I know I don't have any either. What are your weaknesses? What are your limitations? Because it's as important for us to know those as it is to know our strengths. Because when we try to function out of something we are not, when we try to function out of our limitations, that's when we can do some real damage. And then when I was teaching at UF in the summertime, when I wasn't teaching classes, I did some work in the advising office, and my job was to meet with incoming freshmen and help them to get their classes set up for their first semester. And this was a time when students would come into their advisors and they would allow parents to come with them. They don't do that anymore, by the way. And I remember this young man came in to talk to me, and you could just tell that this was an incredibly bright young man. I mean, he just had that spark of intelligence that you knew within 5 minutes that you were dealing with somebody very special. And I said to him, tell me what you want to do with your life. Tell me what your plans are. And immediately his parents answered, he wants to be a doctor. And he wants to be an engineer. And so sign him up for those classes. And as the parents were saying this, and as the parents were pushing chemistry and calculus and all this thing, this schedule on the student, I could literally watch him melt. If you've ever watched somebody literally melt, this was a moment. So I sent his parents out of the room, and I said to him, what do you really want to do? And he said, all I really want to do, I want to study international political science. I want to take languages. I want to study Mandarin. I want to study Russian. All I really want to do is work in the area of diplomacy, international diplomacy. And yet here were his parents pushing him to be a doctor, to be an engineer. They were giving him their dreams. So I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to sign you up for calculus and all the pre-med and engineering classes. And the first day you come see me, and we're going to switch your schedule. That's what we did. We changed his schedule all around. And just thinking about this young man made me think of one of my favorite songwriters, storytellers, a man by the name of Harry Chapin. How many of you know that name? Yay, you are cool people. Harry Chapin is perhaps one of the greatest storytellers in his music. And he shares this quote. He says, my grandfather was a painter. He died at the age 88. He illustrated Robert Frost's first 2 books of poetry. And he was looking at me one day and he said, Harry, there's 2 kinds of tired. There's good tired and there's bad tired. He said, ironically enough, bad tired can be a day that you won. But you won other people's battles. You lived other people's days, other people's agendas, other people's dreams. And when it's all over, there is very little of you in there. And when you hit the hay at night, somehow you toss and turn. You don't settle easy. It's a good tired, ironically enough, can be a day that you lost. But you don't even have to tell yourself because you knew you fought your battles, you chased your dreams, you lived your days, and when you hit the hay at night, you settle easy. And you sleep the sleep of the just, and you can say, take me away. He said, Harry, all my life I wanted to be a painter, and I painted. God, I would have loved to be more successful, but I painted, and I'm good, tired, and they can take me away. Now, how many of us would love to be able to come to the end of our days and say those words, I'm good, tired, and they can take me away. That's my dream for all of us, especially for our graduates. I hope that you are living your dreams and following your own plans. To be able to live your life in this way is to say, I'm good, tired, and they can take me away, is to live a holy, bold life. And then finally, holy boldness always makes a choice for life. The book that I gave to our graduates would God waste precious breath on saying something so obvious? I fail to understand the perverse comfort we sometimes get from choosing death over life, from exempting ourselves from the challenge of using our gifts, of living our lives in authentic relationship with others. Esther made the choice for life on behalf of her people. Literally made the choice for life on behalf of her people. Making the choice for life for us sometimes means letting something of the past go so that something new might spring up out of the earth. Making the choice for life sometimes means being willing to look at things from a new perspective and being willing to test your own assumptions and positions. Making the choice for life might mean setting aside relationships that are unhealthy, saying no to unrealistic expectations, going to bat for the underdog. Making the choice for life means that you are willing to see death for what it is. In Esther's case, it was the literal annihilation of her people. In other situations, death might look different. It might be the loss of freedom, or the setting up of power structures where others are hurt. It might be exclusion. It might be prejudice. Death, sadly, takes on a million faces. And the more we're aware of what those faces look like, the more we can more accurately choose life. Holy boldness is always choosing life over death. But sometimes choosing death is easier. It's less complicated. Judging is so much less taxing than trying to seek understanding. Division is much cleaner than living with the sometimes chaotic messiness of unity. Walking away is almost always easier than staying at the table and learning to live within disagreements. Esther was a character who lived her life with holy boldness. And in doing so, God is revealed in the story because God inhabits holy boldness. Graduates, I want to remind you of the simple truth of our scriptures. God is hidden in you. God is hidden in you. Paul writes about it as one of the greatest mysteries of our faith. And he writes it this way: Christ in you, the hope of glory. Christ in you, the hope of glory. My prayer for you, graduates, my prayer for each and every one of us here today, for all people who call themselves disciples of Jesus, is that the living Christ would abide in us, and that we would abide in Christ each and every day. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. As we prepare to receive our offerings, we remind ourselves that even giving is an act of holy boldness. Because God has given to us everything we need: riches, talents, time, and we desperately want to hold on to those. We want to tighten our grip. And yet God says, release those to me and watch what I can do. So gracious God, we ask for boldness in our giving, in the giving of our gifts, in the giving of our heart, in the giving of our commitment to you, to live faithfully as a disciple of Jesus Christ in whatever form that use it, oh God, to bring glory to your name and not ours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Is that good?